Hey, hello everybody. DM here and editing this once again because a couple of technical issues happened during the recording. First of all, apparently just the first half of the session just wasn't recorded. I guess I accidentally double tapped the start recording thing on OBS and we basically lost, like the first 2 hours or so. Then when I actually started getting around to recording it, something else happened, and apparently the audio on my end was being somehow recorded on both tracks instead of grabbing the player's audio as well. Not entirely sure how that happened. I guess I mistook the audio input captured with the audio output captured on OBS. But so today I'm just gonna give a quick recap of what happened this session. We pick up right where we left off with part of the party talking with Steros, the Jankan artificer, who introduced himself as formerly one of Sidon's most prized craftsmen. He talked a bit with the party about his situation, how he wasn't really enjoying his time in such a shabby work environment, and he wanted to do something else. The party, looking past his former association with Sidon, decided to offer him, a potential partnership if he was to be able to craft stuff for them. He agreed under the condition that they'd be able to rescue his father, who was recently captured by a group of Amazon warriors that had a bit of a skirmish with some of the lizard folk of Fire Island. After this, or rather, while this was happening, Derek decided to go off on his own and try to figure out what was happening on the other side of the volcano, trying to find the Dragon Eggs. After having freed the three lizard folk that were at his side, he decided to take a bit of a detour from the original place where he had a hunch the Dragon Egg would be, and managed to find Jankor's private quarters that he decided to, just kind of look around, see what he could find there. Found a chest with presumably some treasure or money inside, though he couldn't really had a chance to confirm it as he decided to delve deeper, finding a hideout, a place of meditation for a blind cyclops called Polyphorus, who had a bit of a trick, a gamble for Derek. That should Derek beat him in a arm wrestling contest, then Polyphorus would tell him of the location of a powerful weapon that could potentially assist him. Derek, however, did not agree, as if he was to lose, he would be eaten by Polyphorus. Derek hurt Polyphorus' pride by refusing his challenge, and so he got chased down by Polyphorus, who mistakenly swung on one of the lesser folks, and because he's blind, he didn't realize that he had actually not killed Derek. The party realized that Derek was out there unaccounted for and managed to meet back up with him after a loud sound courtesy of a thunderstep spell alerted them that something was off. After meeting back up with the party, Derek tried to explain his situation, but it didn't really work out in his favor, and so he was dragged by the horns back to find the body of the falling lizard folk. As a side note, the remaining two lesser folk decided to abandon Derek as they realized he was more of a liability than a savior to them. Not before running into Bouxfhades and the rest of the party and getting effectively threatened to drop the coffer full of money as they were intending to sacrifice it to the nameless god of the volcano as a way to ask for forgiveness on Jankor's behalf. The party arrived once again at Polyphorus' location and managed to subdue him, removing the body of the lizardfolk from his grasp, though the party was all too late to revive him, Exandria having expended one of her spells in order to attempt a revival, and as such consuming the material, though sadly was for naught as she was a little bit too late. After everybody was done chewing Derek out verbally, they decided to investigate the location where Polyphorus was first found at, and found no signs of any form of magical item. Realizing this, Bouxfhades woke Polyphorus and asked him what was the deal with him. Polyphorus answered that he was an old cyclops who has seen much of the world, much conflict and much loss, and At this point, he is more or less waiting to get a warrior's death, and Sidon is probably the best way he can get it, by siding with him and reaching a conclusion where he's able to fight one more time in the front lines and fall in battle. Bouxfhades, realizing this, decided to offer him, well, a warrior's death. Exandria couldn't bear to watch, so she went to a different part of the volcano, while Derek went on to try and find the dragon egg that he was looking for in the first place. Bouxfhades engaged on a fierce 1v1 battle against Polyphorus, from which he barely came out with his life. Polyphorus, however, wasn't so lucky. He was finally granted his warrior's death in the hands of Bouxfhades. Dragon Porunga stuck around and decided to help Bouxfhades remove the body of Polyphorus from where he was, so that he may be tossed into the volcano as one final sacrifice to Calcia, the Titan of Swiftness that lies within the heart of the volcano. While this was happening, Exandria managed to find a hatchery of sorts, not of dragon eggs, but rather of lizardfolk eggs. She told the two remaining lizardfolk priestesses that Jankor had fallen, and that no longer will the tribe of the Firewalkers follow a false god. That false god, of course, being Sidon. She managed to convince one of the priestesses that were tending to the eggs to come with her, so she may share the story of how basically they were just following orders and that they should be spared by Queen Vita, and that their young should be spared as well. Meanwhile, Derek finally found a dragon egg. It was in a room being guarded by two salamanders and a couple of fire snakes that were making sure this egg was completely safe. Of course, with Jankor defeated, the salamanders had no reason to follow the final instruction that was given to them, and therefore allowed Derek, and by proxy the rest of the group, to have access to the dragon egg, under the condition that they should understand 100% of what it means to be the ward of a dragon, to not just raise it but also nurture it, become a bonded person to this dragon, and to make sure that it grows up to become one of the most powerful beings in the realm. With this final request done, the party finally regrouped back to the plank in front of the volcano and decided to drop Polyphorus's body into it, with Exandria giving one final prayer / request to Calcia, essentially asking her if are life sacrifices necessary for her to thrive, or would fallen warriors such as Polyphorus be enough to satiate her. She got a unsure response from Calcia, not in the way of words, but in the way of a sensation, a feeling, an emotion being shot into her, basically. With this done, Steros showed up once again, having already packed up his belongings and being ready to set off with the rest of the party in tow, or rather, him in tow to the rest of the party. The party went on to begin their descent from the volcano, not without Exandria, of course, going back to pick up Wizard, and now they're on their way back to Queen Vita in order to see how she will cast down judgment on Jankor.